Welcome to the Love Life Podcast, hosted by Jack and Sheila Harper. This podcast is about love and passion for life. Save One was founded by Jack and Sheila in the year 2000 to help men, women, and families recover after abortion. The Harpers have a real passion to see lives be healthy and flourish so that those lives have a lasting impact on the earth. Join us for the next few minutes as we talk about the subjects that impact our lives and how we can together find and keep better spiritual, emotional, and mental health by loving life. Here's Jack and Sheila.
Welcome and hello, Love Life listeners. What a great day it is to love life. Every month, it seems like we have new subscribers and people who are writing to us about the content, and it makes us so happy to know that you're enjoying these people that we're putting out here as much as we do, because they're dear friends, and we love these people, and today is no exception. I know I say that every month, but it really is true. You are going to love today's guest. I was at a retreat with Rachel last year, and I knew Rachel before this, but then when she told her story, everyone in the room was leaned in, listening to what you guys are about to hear. The most incredible thing I see in Rachel is that I see no remnants of what she has endured in her young life. She has been just a completed work of art that God has put together, and you can almost feel the tangible presence of God when she's in the room, because there is such a huge healing that has taken place, and I love it. So thank you for being with us today, Rachel.
Thank you for those kind words.
Well,
I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I mean it, not just because you're here. I really mean it. Rachel is a survivor of horrific abuse, and through the hard work of healing, she has moved forward all the way to becoming this executive over a nonprofit organization called SRT Services. So would you tell us a little bit, first of all, before we get started, a little bit about the organization that you run, SRT Services?
Yeah. SRT Services stands for Sexually Related Trauma Services. So we offer free support groups for those who have experienced sexual abuse or assault, abortion, or miscarriage or stillbirth. So each of our groups, they're 8 weeks long. We meet for one night a week for 8 weeks and work through a whole slew of things. There's things like, one of the weeks we talk about replacing the lies with the truth. One of the weeks we talk about recognizing our poor coping skills and maybe letting go of some of those. We talk about God and forgiveness, and it's really designed to give some practical tools and things that you can kind of hold on to when you're moving through healing.
Yes.
That we may not have had before.
That's really good. I love that. And I love everything that you guys do. I have gotten to know you guys a little bit over the years, and I've loved seeing your growth and just all that you guys do. But as many of you know, I have Save One, which is a lot. I mean, we offer a lot of the same services. The beautiful thing about the abortion recovery movement and the sexual trauma recovery movement is that we don't have to compete. We don't compete with each other. It just seems natural to me to bring Rachel on and tout her services and what she's doing, and vice versa, because the millions, literally the tens of millions of people who have suffered an abortion wound or a sexual trauma wound are so great. There's no way Save One could go and rescue all of them. There's no way SRT could go and take care of all of them. So the numbers, when you look at them, they are staggering. And so it's beautiful that we are all on the same team, working together toward the same goal, and that is to see these things end and in people's lives. And a lot of times we use our own stories to do this, because it's what makes people believe, like, this could happen to me too. If I see you're healed from this, it could happen to me too. So I want to make sure, because people will look at this and some people will be like, what in the world? Doesn't she have Save One? Why is she doing that?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate what you said too, because one of the staggering statistics that we learned over the past several years, and it's probably higher at this point, is that 50% of the adults in the US have been affected by one of those three sexually related trauma.
Wow.
So when you look at that, like you said, it is millions of people who have experienced
Yes.
this. And I know that there are ways that we offer healing that's different than the way that you offer healing. And when we come together, I think we complete the
Mm-hmm.
whole healing for the whole person. That's
Yes.
I think the benefit. We like to say we're just the start of the path. A lot of times when folks come to our groups, they have never shared their story before. They've
Mhm.
never shared it in its entirety. There are pieces of it that they're like, I have never told anyone this before. And so it's a really good entry step for people, our programs. And then ones like Save One, that's where you go a little bit deeper. And so I think it takes both, because there are wounded people everywhere. We are all over the place. And so,
Yes.
yeah.
I love it. And so many times, I don't know if you run across this, but so many times people tend to think of a stereotype. Well, that's what's happening in this genre of people, or this, and
Mm-hmm.
it's literally like it's our doctors, it's our child's teacher, it's the
Mm-hmm.
clerk at the grocery store that's checking you out, it's your pastor. They have all, I mean, not all, I don't want to paint with that broad brush, but so many of them have been affected by these issues, and we're not talking about them. So
Yep.
people just tend to think, well, it must not have happened here.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think it goes on both sides of that spectrum where, well, it doesn't happen here. Ours is a safe small town, and ours
Right.
is ours is a safe family. We don't have that in our history. We don't have that experience. Or on the flip side of that, where I must be totally alone. No, nobody else might feel like this. I'm the only one who's experienced it. It's an isolated event. Where there's this loneliness that can happen around these traumas as well. And that's why we like to, it sounds harsh, but that's why we like to lead with, no, 50%. That's millions of people who are experiencing the same thing that you're experiencing, some of the same thought processes. The way that we process and respond to it might be a little different. So our coping skills are going to look a little different, but you're not alone.
That's
Definitely
right.
not alone.
That's right. That's good. I'm glad you said that, because so many times that's how the enemy gets you. He makes you think like
Mm-hmm.
this is, only happening to you. But I'm going to jump right in and start
Yeah,
asking you questions.
sure.
Okay. You okay with me just pelting you with questions?
Mm-hmm.
I'm so
For
glad
sure.
you came on here today. This is, we are honored that you are a part of our podcast today.
Thank you.
But I believe a lot of what you suffered, what you told at that retreat, I believe a lot of what you suffered, many of our listeners, as you said, I mean, 50% or more, many of our audience will be able to relate to you on some level. Either they
Yeah.
have been affected in the same way that you were, or they know someone who is going through the same things that you did. So, kind of in a nutshell, and you don't have to get into graphic detail or anything like that. Will
Sure.
you tell us your story? Just kind of like what you told us at the retreat. Will you tell us
Mm-hmm.
that story?
Yeah. Yeah. So I grew up in what I considered a very religious home. We definitely from the outside looked like we had it all together. We went to church multiple times a week. It was very, I didn't know it at the time, but it was pretty, by, I think by design, intentionally, we looked like we knew what we were doing. And
Mm-hmm.
behind closed doors, it was a completely different story. And so I grew up with a couple of key memories of abuse, and that was it. And it wasn't until I got married and it was one of those where in college I felt like, okay, God, I need some healing around this. So I called this particular family member, and it was now I'm like, oh, poor naive Rachel. It was so dysfunctional what I did. But I called my abuser and I apologized to him for the things that he had done to me, because I just needed something to feel like I could move forward. I needed
Yeah.
some closure, is kind of what I called it.
And probably control. It probably gave you a feeling of
Mm-hmm.
control. as well.
Yes. Yeah. And that was the one and only time that he had ever acknowledged, and still to this day has ever acknowledged, that anything happened between us. And I really felt as though I'm good now. Now that's out of the way. My healing is done. I can move on with life. We're so good.
Yeah.
And I got married, and I didn't think to bring any of it up. We had our daughter, and I didn't think to bring any of it up. And it wasn't until we had our son that all of a sudden my world just collapsed. And it was one of those sort of come to Jesus moments almost of, God, I do not know how to raise boys. I don't know how to keep people safe around boys. I don't know. And now I've got this one that I'm expected to raise and steward and teach. And I do not know how to do that. I have no idea. And it really scared me. And so I sat down with my husband. I was like, so here's the deal. I probably should have told you this probably years ago. Here we are. This is my experience. And
Yeah.
bless his heart, he was so kind about it.
That's
And
so great. He sounds wonderful.
he really is. I feel completely blessed to be able to be in this relationship with him. But he that was the first time he said, okay, well, let's create some boundaries around my family. And that was the first time I was ever on the inside of boundaries, and where the intention was to keep me safe as well. And that had just never happened before. And so that kind of started for me this process of, okay, so I've got some things to talk about, some things to work through.
Yeah.
It was several years later that I found SRT Services. And again, it was one of those, well, I'm totally fine. I don't really know why I need this class, but for work, I should probably go so that I know what to tell people. And they were also very kind. I showed up that first night and I said, hey, so I'm just here to audit the class just so I know what to say for work. Of course, God was like, hey,
Oh, yeah.
since you're here, let's
Might as
just talk
well.
about some things. Yeah. Let's just look into some things. And it was hard. So that was the first time that I realized that I had repressed memories, and a lot of my abuse. My brain was like, you cannot see this and function. So we're just going to keep it kind of sealed away until you're ready to deal with it. And that came even just probably 2 years later. So over the past 5 years, I have been on this process of really intense therapy, EMDR, just to uncover those things and finally put a name and a place for what I experienced and what happened. And turns out there were 3 key abusers in my family that were sexually abusive to several of us. And through that, I ended up pregnant twice and was forced to have 2 separate abortions in my teen years.
How old were you at each of those abortions?
So the first one I was 14 and the second one I was 17.
Did anyone, let's just park here for just a second.
Sure.
Did anyone ever question, you're a minor, you're pregnant? Did anyone ever question? Or
No.
who took you? Or
So
I have one girl who came through a Save One class who was 14 and rode her bike and got the abortion, and no one ever even questioned. She couldn't get a
yeah,
license, but she could get an abortion on
it
her.
is crazy to me.
Yes.
Yeah. So the first one at 14, my mom actually created this whole home concoction that I drank at home. And there was, so nobody knew. The other piece of that is I think um, I don't know if it was naivety or if it was, now it was a way to make sure that I stayed safe. But every doctor's appointment I went to, my mom went with me and she answered most of the questions for
Wow.
me. And
Okay.
so there was, I think doctors are a little bit better about, hey, maybe we should talk to
Yeah.
her about this and just see
Good.
from her perspective what's going on. And so it almost reminds me of like when I was pregnant with my kids, And my husband would come with me to the appointments because he wanted to hear the heartbeat and
Mhm.
all of that. It was very sweet. But they would ask me in front of him if I felt safe at home. I was like, well,
Wow.
do people actually answer that question with no, with
Yeah.
their loved one in the room
Yeah.
that they're
That's
supposed to
true.
feel? It was very bizarre to me. And so I don't know how much of it was that now some of that is shifted where we find ways to, like, that's a red flag for people when somebody else answers all your medical questions.
Mhm.
I did not know that. And so, when I was 17, my mom took me, we drove 3 hours away to a larger city and, had the abortion and drove home. And so it wasn't nobody questioned it. I ended up at the doctor's, couple months after that with some scar tissue and some evidence of
Yeah.
trauma that they just did not know how to account for because, according to my mom, I was not sexually active. And so, and I couldn't remember it anyways. And so if they had asked me, I would have said, no, I don't think I'm sexually active. I don't know what it's from. I can't figure out why, um, I'm having all these issues
Mm.
because I don't remember any of it. And so, um, but I think because my family had an image to maintain, I think that's why my mom took me, because then people would know that something was going on in our family. And I was pregnant by a family member. And so
Mhm.
there wouldn't even have been a way to explain that, well, it was my boyfriend or because I didn't have one. And so, that was all, yeah, it was confusing to go back and remember. I
Mhm.
remember at the
Can imagine.
time going to the doctors and trying to figure out what was going on. But yeah, I was not really ever given a choice. We didn't talk about why we were doing it. I just knew, um, for my continued safety, I have to go along with this.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then I did. And so, um,
What happened after the abortions? Because I jumped in and interrupted you because I wanted people to understand that minors are taken all the time
all the
and
time.
forced to have abortions.
Yeah.
They're not opting for it. They're not, I mean, this isn't something that is happening in a vacuum. I mean, this happens all the time. And
Mhm.
so anyway, what happened after that? Like, what were the years after that? Your relationship with your mom, that type of thing?
So it's hard because my lived experience at the time, and remember, I repressed probably 90% of all of this. And
Mhm.
so I didn't even remember and work through it up until about 5 years ago. And
Okay.
so, at the time, it felt like, oh, my mom's going to the doctor with me. She really cares about me. That was
Okay.
kind of how I justified it, I think, in my head. It was also one of those, I didn't notice that things were dysfunctional in our family until I got married. And we've been married now for almost 15 years. And when we got married, my husband, again, what a gift from God, because he would just ask, hey, so why do you guys do this?
Well, it's 'cause we've always done it like that.
And that was my answer. I don't know. This is just the way we've always done it. It didn't even occur to me that there was a different way to do life or to process things or to work through them until I saw the way that he wanted to be healthy and move through things and the way that his family moved through conflict and figured things out and talked through. Um, and when I really started to talk with his mom, and seeing the generational benefits of healing. So when she was in her 30s, she came from a pretty dysfunctional family as well. And in her 30s, kind of hit that point like I did, like I cannot go on like this.
Yeah.
Something has to give. I have to figure something out. And so she started going to counseling. And as a result, her kids, who is my husband, he grew up in a home where we talked about conflict. They talked about trauma. They talked about health. And
Healthily. Health in a healthy
yes,
way.
in
Yeah.
a healthy way. Yeah. And so when I married into it, then I was the beneficiary of someone who had done some really hard work and
Mhm.
seen how their kids could grow up in a healthy, and it didn't even occur to me that you could have health within a family unit. And so I think that was one of the things that gave me the courage to say, okay, I'm ready to dive into this and do this. I don't want my kids to grow up in the same environment that I grew up in, and with the same patterns and with the same dysfunction and the same sort of core beliefs about who we are and how we operate. I didn't want any of that. And so hearing her story of, no, it's possible to go through healing and actually learn how to communicate with people and to function in a healthy relationship and in healthy ways with people. That was kind of the catalyst, one of the catalysts for me that I would like to figure this out. I really would.
That's
And
good.
so that's part of why I leaned in when I went through SRT Services, when I went through my first Savanon Sexual Abuse Victims Anonymous group, why I was able to lean in. And after that, it was like, I can't go back to the
Yeah.
dysfunctional way we've been
Yeah.
living.
When you
Just,
feel
there's
that
no way.
freedom and healing, you can't go back. It's almost like you can't even remember what your life was like back then, because it is so complete when you finally deal with that. But look at that. I love that you brought up the fact that this woman who you didn't even know got healing, which changed the trajectory of her children's lives, which changed the
Yeah.
trajectory of your life, which changed the trajectory of your kids' lives, all because one woman had the courage to say, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm gonna, this curse, whatever this thing is, it stops with me, and it's not going any further. And that's hard work. It is
It's
hard
so
work.
hard.
But I love that. And I feel like that's so important for our listeners, because they may think like, I've got it managed. I've got it,
Right.
all packaged up, and it's, it's not bothering me. But healing, you may have it compartmentalized, but you're still looking at your worldview. You're looking through the lens of the trauma, and you don't even realize it. But when you're healed, it's like this whole new world opens to you, and you raise your children differently. You react to your spouse differently. There's
It
just
changes
so
everything.
much. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm so glad we
Yeah.
talked about that. But knowing from experience that you may forgive and heal, but then there's also a level of trauma that kind of like, when you've had trauma in your life, it kind of plays out in your life. And you have mentioned a few ways that it did, but tell us how trauma tends to play out in our life, especially when we haven't dealt with it. But then also sometimes even when you have dealt with it, it still plays out in your life a little bit. Explain that to us.
Yeah. So we talk about, like I mentioned, one of the weeks in each of our programs is devoted to kind of the ways that we've responded to what has happened to us, and through coping skills. And for me, it was actually really hard. And it sounds a little like I'm tooting my own horn here. I am not, but my coping skills were not, they were all socially acceptable. So, you've got those ones that people look at and they're like, ooh, that's socially unacceptable. Alcohol,
Yeah.
drugs, promiscuity, like those things which again sounds really judgy. And we do that sometimes. We shouldn't. But when you see somebody who's struggling with those, and you can see they have had a really hard life, there is probably trauma there. So I responded with what we would consider socially acceptable. It didn't look like it was hurting anybody, because I turned to perfectionism. I turned to overachieving. I had this crazy inability to say no to people. Like, I remember I was invited to this event. This was several years ago. And I told my husband, I was like, I don't want to go. What excuse do I give them why I can't go? He's like, honey, you could just tell them, no, thank you. I was like, no. I don't think you understand.
No, I cannot say that.
No, thank you is not an appropriate response. I need something more for no, thank you. I've got a birthday. I'm going to a funeral. Somebody is probably going to die that day, and that's why I can't go. But just to say, oh, thank you for the invitation, I'm not going to be able to make it, was unheard of for
Out of
me.
your realm.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. There was no way I was going to, which again is a red flag, because no is a complete sentence. We should have the freedom to say no, Thank you for the invitation, but that's just not going to work in my schedule. And so I looked like a really good employee. I was always pretty quickly promoted to things. I worked hard. I got my job done and other people's jobs done,
Wow.
not from a place of, there was an element of, I genuinely love the work, but it was from a place of, this is the only way to keep me safe. The only way to keep myself safe is to work really hard and to push myself and to never say no. And it wasn't until I went through this class that it just was like this light bulb went off of, oh my goodness, I have been coping in really unhealthy ways. It's not healthy for me to run myself ragged, especially in a situation where I already was safe. And that, I think, is some of what trauma does, is it keeps us stuck in this cycle of survival where it's really hard for our bodies, our hearts, our minds to know, I am actually safe. I don't have to scramble. I don't have to run around like a crazy person. This is
That's
not,
right.
because now I am safe. Once I got married and started kind of moving through that healing process, I was safe.
Mm.
But it took a little while. So you talk about, even now, knowing what I know, having done all of the work, these last few weeks have been incredibly hard. And part of that is because I'm stressed. I will openly admit there are times when you go through healing, you still get stressed out.
Yes.
And some of my natural instinct, like I spent all day Monday wrestling with what is the truth here and what is the lie. And it took me probably a good 10 hours to get to, no, okay, this is actually the truth. This is what I am responding, and my body wants to respond from a place of unhealth and dysfunction, and because that feels familiar, but I'm not going to do that anymore. So how do I not do that? And so
Mm.
taking these tools that I've learned over the years, and really still, there are days where I have to apply them. I have to sit down with, Gail, that's a pretty big lie I'm believing. So what's the
That's good.
truth? What is, and how do I actively work to, nope, I'm not going to believe that because I know that's a lie. The truth is this, and I'm going to operate out of this new place of truth, not the old way. And then when my body is freaking out and I can tell I'm getting all worked up and stressed, that,
Yeah.
slowing down enough to say, no, actually, I'm safe. I am safe.
Yeah.
Now, that was a big one for me, is I am safe in my body. I can trust my instincts. I'm safe in my home, which, again, once I got married, that was never the question. I have always felt safe with my husband. Letting my body learn that took a little while. And so there are still moments where I respond with, ooh, who do I need to punch? Cause I will, cause I need to revert back to some of those old
Yeah.
ways of keeping myself safe. And that's not
Mm.
effective anymore. And so, yeah, just being able to slow down and recognize that, oh, this is why I'm responding in this way, because I don't feel safe in this moment. So let me do the work again to say, no, I am safe. Here's the lie I'm believing. Here's the way I want to cope with that. Here's maybe a healthier way to cope with that. And that's to lean in. And, I had some conversations with my husband that were helpful, and I don't have to do any of that process alone anymore. And so that was part of it. I think no matter what stage of healing you're at, you can always heal more. There's
Yeah.
always new layers and new,
We're never
and
completely done and perfect.
yes, right. Which, I'm not going to lie, that annoys me greatly, but I get it. I get it. And
Yeah.
so recognizing that that's the truth of it, we will not ever be done. So there are still things and tools and ways of thinking that I have to practice even
Well,
now.
I love that you talked about what is the truth, what is the lie I'm believing,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes we don't stop our minds long enough to let it think that deeply.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, this scenario and different things are coming in my head, and we are the gatekeepers of our mind, and
Right.
everything starts in your mind. So you have to stop and think, like, what is coming into my mind that I don't have to keep here? And it's just allowing yourself to think because a lot of times we just fill it with a distraction, or fill it with this, or fill it with that, and think, if I just stay distracted, I won't think about that. But no,
Right.
stopping and thinking about it will help you purge it. One of the ways that came with my trauma from childhood was I would always have these doomsday scenarios go through my mind, because I always knew like something bad is going to happen. The other shoe is going to
Mm-hmm.
drop. This life cannot be this good, and I would start thinking of these doomsday scenarios, crazy things like, if I'm going to go ride a subway, what if someone pushes me on the tracks? What if someone, and I start going through this whole scenario to where
Mm-hmm.
like my blood pressure raises, my heart's racing, and I'm having a physical reaction to something that is not even real.
Yes.
And what I had to start doing is stopping and thinking, okay, where am I right now? I am sitting in my house. This is not happening to me. It's just stopping
Mm-hmm.
to let yourself think. This is what
Yeah.
is happening. What is the likelihood of me being pushed on? I don't even know if I'm going to be riding the subway.
We don't even have a subway here. And I
Right.
think about things like that.
Right. And so
Yep.
thinking of these doomsday scenarios, just, okay, I'm okay. Nothing is happening
Mm-hmm.
right now. I'm in my home in Nashville, Tennessee. So I think that is key to, I feel like so many listeners, to just let yourself stop and think about what you're thinking about, and
Mm-hmm.
recognize that you are the one who is the gatekeeper of your mind, and you can
Yes.
boot out those thoughts or keep the good thoughts.
So there were two things that really helped me with that. One was because I would do that too. I carried a purse that was like 75 pounds because it had every possible scenario in it. So I had extra food. I had clothes for our kids. I had a game just in case seriously, somebody needed Tylenol. Somebody had an allergic reaction. I had Benadryl.
Batteries in case in case a game goes dead. So
Yes,
everything.
everything. And the other thing I would do is I would practice conversations. Or practice arguments is really what they were.
Yeah.
And I would practice the version of it where I got to say what I wanted to say.
Mhm.
And like you said, eventually I'm sweating. My
Yes.
body's super tense. And what I learned was that your body cannot physically tell the difference between practicing a conversation and actually having it.
That's
So
true. That's good.
yeah. So when you practice those things, your body feels like I am in the middle of the most intense argument and I have to be ready to defend myself. So
Mhm.
it will get ready to defend itself. So that's part of why I would show up. I'd get out, and it was mostly in the car when I'd have these conversations by myself. And I'd get to wherever I'm going. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I just ran 20 miles. I am tired. I'm so exhausted because I practiced this conversation. And once I realized that I was putting my body through unnecessary stress, because honestly, those conversations never actually happened. It was
Right.
all kind of made up in my mind of, well, if they said this, then I would say this, and then they would respond with this, and I'd come back with this. And I've never once actually had a
Had
conversation
that
the
com
way that I practiced it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so getting to a point where it's like, gosh, I am actually doing more damage to my body by practicing conversations that are not likely to happen. Scenarios like what you're talking about, like, well,
Mhm.
what would happen if I got pushed onto the tracks? Well, what would I do? How would I? Or like if I get hit by a dump truck, what would I do?
Mhm.
My body cannot tell that I have not actually gotten hit by a dump truck
That's
because
right.
it's like all worked up. And so recognizing that I am actually not helping my body out at all. I'm actually causing more damage to it.
That's right.
I need to stop that. And so it became God, you're just going to have to tell me what to say in the moment because I cannot be ready for every possible scenario. That is in and of itself is a survival skill
Mhm.
that I used to hone and really be on top of. And it's exhausting trying to be ready for every possible scenario.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
can't do it. I can't do it
Yes.
anymore. And so it sort of became okay, you're just going to have to tell me what to say. And you're going to have to show me how to defend myself in the moment when it happens. because me trying to prep for it, it's not working.
And you can't prepare for
No,
everything. You've just gotta trust
no.
at some point.
Yes.
You gotta trust
Yeah.
God's taking care of you.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you the opposite question, just real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I love hearing victory stories and wins to these situations because when you've been through trauma, it's just moot unless you have this incredible victory story. There's no reason to tell it unless you say, but this is what God can do, you know?
Yeah.
So tell us how, I asked you how trauma has played out in your life. Tell us how the healing has played out in your life.
Goodness. It almost feels like too many ways to count, which I know that's not helpful, but I think about moments with my kids where before I went through healing, there were definitely ways that I responded to my kids where I can look back and see now, oh, I totally shut down. There was no conversation I was
Wow.
having with them. There was no understanding. There's moments where, so for example, this is a terrible example, but it's what came to mind. So there would be moments where my kids would talk, like my oldest would talk about, hey, I really want to raise some money for this thing. And at the time, she's like 9, and I am freaking out internally. I never once thought about money, never got an allowance. For me, it really was survival. There was no, I could do a lemonade stand and raise money to buy this toy, or I could, but my daughter, she'd be like, hey, can I do a lemonade stand so that I can raise some money? And because I want to buy this toy for me and my friend. And so in that, there were several in the old way of thinking that, well, no, because you're going to be sitting on our sidewalk. We're just, anyone can walk up and talk to
That's
you.
right.
Like, we're not doing that. I don't want you exposed to everyone. Where now there's a little bit more like that hypervigilance of, no, it's my job to keep you safe. And I am going to, which I still pay attention to my kids and keep them safe.
Of
But
course. Yes.
now it doesn't come with that whole body clench of
Mhm.
like, but they are outside and they're, yes. And so moments of actually letting them experience some risky freedom, I think is
Mhm.
what we would call it, is things that they're doing that feel like risks, but are actually pretty safe for them to
Yeah.
risk so that they can test themselves. Where before there was none of that for them. I was the mom that was like, no, let me help you. Let me help you put on your shoes and let me help you do this. And
Mhm.
and then there was a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I am not helping either one of us out because they don't know how to be independent because I am constantly the one who is
Doing
doing
everything.
things for them. Yes. And so even now, like this morning, our son, he's like, hey, mom, can I make some sausage? Yes, do that. You're good. He's 10. And so, like, you can feed yourself. I love it. Do that. Well, he burnt his finger and he's like, can you come take over? Cause it hurts. I'm like, well, no, you have these 9 other ones that you could use to,
Yeah.
you're good. You're okay.
Yeah,
You can
that's
still
good.
do this. And so even just in that, where I see the things that I allow them to do or
Mhm.
encourage them to do now from a place of, well, let's see, because I believe in you and I trust that you are learning skills and you're not going to do it perfect. Yeah, you might burn yourself. That's true.
But it's part of learning.
But that's part of learning. And where that before would have been
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, no, they cannot hurt themselves at all, ever.
Yeah.
That's so
So
things.
healing for you helped you in the way that you interact with your kids,
Yes.
raising them to not be that helicopter parent that just has to stay one step ahead of God to keep them
Yeah.
protected, you know. So that I can
Mm-hmm.
see how that has been such a huge
Yeah.
thing for your entire family, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, and even just in my relationship with my husband, where before, I didn't really know how I felt about certain things. I think growing up in survival mode, there's not a lot of introspection that you do. I did not
Mhm.
feel any emotions. I like to joke that I was given happy. That was the emotion that I was expected to portray, and that was it.
At all
And
times.
so, oh yeah. So I did not know what it felt like to be angry or to grieve. I had no language for I feel really lonely today or really
Wow.
sad today. And so, um, doing the work of healing, now I can articulate, even with my husband in our relationships, that, hey, this thing actually hurt my feelings, or I am actually feeling really sad about this thing that happened, and being able to recognize that, oh, that's actually how I'm feeling. And that's the emotion. That's what it feels like in my body. That's what it feels like in my spirit. That's what it feels like internally, and to be able to sit with it and go, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then articulate it to somebody that, hey, this is actually how I'm feeling right now,
Mhm.
rather than just happy.
Yeah. Yeah. You're able to be more authentic now.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like your life is living proof of what happens when you surrender to God and allow him to work in your life and just be obedient for whatever the next step is, and then the next step and the next step. And then,
Mm-hmm.
who would have ever thought that you as this girl, the way that you grew up, can now allow God to use what the enemy meant to take you out with. He
Mm-hmm.
meant so much evil in your life, because statistics say you should be strung out on drugs somewhere,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
because you surrendered to God and were obedient, he was able to take that and turn it into this beautiful story of redemption, to where you're helping
Mm-hmm.
people all around the world. And so,
Goodness. Yeah.
I mean, only God can do stuff like that. So
No, it's
I
true.
love that you have come on here today. I know we could keep going, but
Yeah.
do you have anything else to add, just real
So
quick?
just one more little tidbit that I always find really fascinating. So um, gratitude and anxiety all come from the same part in your brain. So it is
Mm,
physically impossible to experience both at the same time. It is a one or the other. You cannot experience anxiety while also being grateful. And so one of the things I think that has helped too, and we talk with our daughter, she's got a lot of fears as well, because the first few years of her life, I was very anxious. And so I taught her some bad habits to start with. But one of the things that we talk through is, when you're anxious, when you're getting nervous, when you're starting that spiral of what if this
mm,
happens,
mhm.
you cannot continue that spiral and be grateful. And so we'll just start listing everything that we're grateful for. And eventually the anxiety goes away, because they cannot coexist. And
That's
so that
good.
would be my encouragement to anybody who is listening to that. If that's something that you struggle with, I know it
That's
sounds
awesome.
cheesy, but replace it
No.
with gratitude.
Yeah, I think that's an
Yeah.
incredible. And that I mean, you guys know, as our listeners know, we give a love life tip of the day. I think that's an incredible love life tip of the day to help you love life on a greater level. But you did send in one that you wanted us to tell the listeners, and it is progress over perfection. It's okay
Mm,
to set small goals. And then you said 15-minute timer. So just real
yeah.
quickly, you got to explain the 15-minute timer.
Yeah. Okay. So in the middle of like deep trauma healing, I was exhausted. Doing healing is hard work. It takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on
Yeah.
your brain. It is absolutely worth it. But during the middle of it, I did a lot from my bed. So I don't know if it was a combination of depression and trying to figure out processing life and organizing my memories, all of those things. And so I parented from bed. I did a lot on my work I could do online from my bed. And so I'd say, okay, I need to go do laundry, because we can't be naked, because that's not socially acceptable. So I'm going to set a timer for 15 minutes. And this is so ridiculous, you guys. I would, I'd get out of bed and I'd turn to my bed. I'd be like, I'll be right back. Hold my spot.
How
I'll be
funny.
right back. And I would set a timer, because all I could do was 15 minutes at a time. So I would go blitz clean something for 15 minutes. And
And
once
then
the
go back
timer
to
was
bed.
it, I'd go lay back down.
So
Yeah.
that was kinda
I'm like,
like that was your
that's
safe place. It was kinda like that was your safe place, right?
yes. Oh, it
Yeah.
totally was. Yeah. And I did a lot of processing from my bed. And so okay, I got 15 minutes. I'm going to go do the dishes.
Mhm.
Once the timer's done, I'm going to come right back here. And so I
That's
would
great.
tell my bed and my room, see you in 15 minutes. I'm coming right back.
So
But
that's wonderful. That really is true progress over perfection. And I have loved this conversation. Thank you so much for coming on here today. I feel like we could keep talking for hours. We need to have coffee.
Yeah, we do.
But to our listeners, thank you for tuning in this month. And I pray that you are enjoying this podcast. Please like, share, comment, and review it. Your feedback means the world to us. And so thank you so much again, Rachel, for being part of today's show. We have been completely blessed by your words today. I know the listeners will have been too. And I hope that you will be watching for our next episode, helping you love life on a greater level. See you next month.
Thank you for being a part of our audience today on the Love Life podcast. Please share it with your friends and check back often for the next podcast or subscribe so you don't miss a single episode.